Hey guys, it's Jamie bringing you another episode of Recovery Inspired Hope. And today we start my new series, Strong Women in Recovery. I'm so excited today to be at the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network with my very good friend, TaTa-Nisha Frazier. And for those, you might think she looks a little bit familiar. You've probably seen her billboard because she was on a billboard for the Georgia Recovers campaign. So today we're going to find out a little bit about her. So TaTa-Nisha, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for creating this platform for us to share our recovery journeys with the world.
Yes.
That is something I've always wanted to do, to be in recovery in my community out loud. So I've always been an out loud person, even when I was using it.
Yes.
So I've improved in that area quite a bit. But I'm a mother in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is I get to be fully present for my family today. I am a proud certified peer specialist and certified addiction recovery empowerment specialist. And I'm a registered voter. I'm a community liaison. I'm a parent, and I'm a friend. More importantly, I get to do the work of recovery within the state of Georgia, and it's been a real pleasure and a joy to be able to do that. Now, it's not always great and it's not always perfect, but at the end of the day, I have a quality of life that I would not have had it not been for my recovery. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So, and how long do you have in your recovery?
Sure. So I've been in recovery 9.5 years, almost 10 years in October.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yes,
wow.
I love my life.
So, and also you work for Rise?
Right. I do. I work for a recovery community organization centered around the arts, called Rise Theater in the historic West End of Atlanta. It is where I found the creative part of myself that was always there, but I never really had a chance to explore that and tap into my wellness through recovery. So I started going to Rise when it was in Decatur, just as a way to have an outlet for my recovery, to do something fun like dance and express and write and be a part of people who are creative and artistic, because at the time I didn't believe that I was, and eventually I got a job there, and so I've been working there for almost 9 months now, and it's been pretty cool. So I love being there.
Yes, and I'm a firm believer in multiple pathways. I mean, I tell people whatever works for you, keep doing it. And I think that on the creative aspect of it, having dance and singing, and I know I've been to Rise before and done a drum circle, and it is just so good for my soul.
Yes. Drums are good for the soul.
Yes.
And it's trauma informed as well.
Yes. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what brought you to the decision when you decided that you wanted to do something different and change your life?
Well, I had quite a few embarrassing moments. I had stayed in a relationship way past its expiration date, and I was in a lot of pain. I had lost custody of my children, and I was only able to see them during the summer and on holidays, and it became unbearable. That I had given birth to 3 children and that I couldn't parent them. And so it became my mission at some point, not very early in the relationship, but later in the relationship, did I find that I needed to do something better. That was the only way I was going to get my kids back. And so I started working on finding a way to get to wellness, and I called the Crisis Access Line. And the Crisis Access Line referred me to DeKalb Addiction Clinic. And so I started an outpatient treatment program with the DeKalb Addiction Clinic, and found that I had to do long-term treatment. And so I did that long-term treatment outpatient. And when I completed that, I had to figure out what to do. And during the first 2 years of my recovery, I was just really trying to figure out how I was going to get them back. But I didn't show up on paper very well because I hadn't worked in many years. I didn't have my own place. I didn't have an income. I was being supported by someone else. And so every time I would look at that paperwork, and I also had a very unwilling ex-husband who did not want to support me in getting the kids back. So I was very discouraged, and it took me a little while. I took some parenting classes and found out that there was just some things I was going to need to get ready for my kids. And so I began to focus on parenting classes and anger management, because those were the two areas that really showed up real high in my intake. It was like, you need some help with your anger.
Yes.
And you need parenting skills. So we understand you want your kids back, but right now you're not in a position. So let's focus on the anger management and getting some classes.
And that's so important, because you know what I see so much in recovery is that women rush, they get their kids back, and sometimes they're not ready, and then it sends them right back out because they can't handle it. So that's great that you actually took time to recognize those things. You took the time to invest in yourself so that you could be prepared for when the gift came to have your children. And you have twins.
I have twins.
I just found out she has twins who are about to turn 16. You better pray for her. We're going to have a hands-on prayer session after this, you guys.
Yeah, that's pretty hard. And I will say that I was not real sure that I was not ready. And I never stopped wanting my kids, even though I wasn't ready. But I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And eventually I got to a place of understanding that there's some work I need to do first. And so I never stopped wanting my kids. Now I wanted them at the early, I wanted them in the beginning, I wanted them in the middle, and I wanted them at the end. But 8 years is a long time to not be without my kids.
Yes.
So there were times when I wanted to give up and said, maybe I'm not supposed to have them. And then God would just show me a way. And I just kept being diligent in that process. So now I have them back, and we've been back together now 5 years now.
Wow. So, awesome. That's such a blessing. That's awesome.
And
Thank you.
It was hard. It's not, this sounds like a pretty story, but it was rough. But we're together.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your courage and your strength in that for the moms out there who are still pushing towards your children. It is possible.
It is.
So tell me a little bit about challenges that you found being a woman in recovery.
Ooh. Well, as a woman in recovery, and my pathway was 12-step, right? And so one of the things that I had to learn was that when I was going to meetings, that I had to learn that my recovery was more important than a relationship. Okay. My recovery was more important than a relationship.
Yes.
And so I happened to meet some really wonderful, strong women in recovery. And I just want to mention that there are many pathways to recovery, and I know Jamie says this quite a bit. And so my particular pathway was 12-step. I used many pathways. I used nature. I did a lot of nature walks. I did a lot of praying. I did a whole lot of a gambit of things to really find my wellness and recovery. But the 12-step, I met some really strong women, and they held me up, and they taught me how to be a strong woman. And then I stand on the shoulders of my mother, who was also in recovery. And watching her struggle through was part of how I'm able to really be sitting here today, because I watched my mom struggle with us.
Wow.
So
your mom was in recovery when you were young?
Yes.
Wow. How many years does she have now?
My mom had about 30 plus years in recovery.
Wow.
And, watching her go to meetings and struggle with trying to figure out how to pay the bills and make her meetings and sit with her sponsor and go to her counseling sessions, all of that stuff, I actually got to watch her do. So I was very fortunate to have that example in front of me for so long. By the time my mom found recovery, I was a teenager. So I was already mad and angry and didn't want to do nothing she said. And, you know, and so fortunately I got my kids back a little bit before they became teenagers, but they never let me forget it, you know. They never, still to this day. But yeah, so having strong women as examples is really how I'm able to be the woman that I am today.
Awesome. And I know with you working here at the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, I just want to ask you what your idea is on, do you believe that mental health and substance use disorder go hand in hand?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And initially I didn't know that, even though my treatment plan would indicate that. I was very focused on the substance abuse side. I don't know if I would have made it to treatment had I not had my experience around the alcohol and drugs. But when I got to a place of understanding that I was extremely depressed, like to the point where even in treatment, I had clear examples of people getting better, and they kept on saying, you may want to think about your mental health. And I refused because I didn't want to, I was at that time attached to the stigma around medication.
Yes.
And I even went to detox and told them that I would not be taking any detox meds. And so learning that my mental health challenge is pretty much how I got to my addiction was a big eye-opener for me. It really was. And the first time I applied to be a certified peer specialist was the first time I actually had to really accept that I know I have a mental health diagnosis. I just did not want that to be my badge. Like, I didn't want to be known as the person who had, like, I was attached to the stigma. And so I had to learn that I can share that I have a mental health challenge. I can live with a mental health challenge and still be in recovery.
Absolutely.
Like that was, whoa, I could do that. I could do that.
Yes.
Wow. So yeah. So they go hand in hand. Most people are not always willing to admit that, and that's okay. That is their individual choice. But for those of you who have a mental health challenge or don't even know that you have one, it's worth exploring, because I promise you, had it not been for me checking in to a treatment facility and finding out that I needed more help than just getting off of the alcohol and drugs, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today. I'm real clear about that. And so while I watched people get better, I had this group that I was in treatment with, and everybody was happy and everybody was talking about how life was getting better for them. And here I am 6 months in, still sitting there like this, like angry. Like it wasn't until I made a decision to tap into the mental health aspect of it that I learned that I'm extremely depressed. And I was at the point of being in treatment and thinking, if this is what my life is going to be, I don't want it. I don't want this. So I was even thinking I didn't even want to be here while in treatment, if this is what my life was going to be like. So after, having the experience of watching people get better, having the experience of my group of people saying, look, you might want to check in. So being accountable, having people around you that say to you, you might want to take a look. Like I was mad. I would leave treatment angry because they were trying to say, you're something wrong. You need to check into that. So, they go hand in hand for me personally.
And I love the way that you speak out about it. And because, we talk about the stigma and the shame that is not just attached to substance use disorder, but also to mental health challenges. And, I think it's so important for us to speak out about our recovery. I always say that when I lost my anonymity, my chains of guilt and shame were broken, and I became empowered to be able to share my story and help others. Tell me how you feel about why it's important to speak out about recovery and about mental health challenges.
Well, for me, even though I knew about recovery because of my mother, I sat in my living room drinking every day, embarrassed about my addiction, and just thinking that people would judge me, and that even though my drinking got me to the place of not having my children, when I started to look at the truth of that, it was very difficult for me to talk about. So I drank about it. And eventually, when I got to treatment and people were sharing some of the same stories, it was a game changer. And so sharing about it let me know that there were other women just like me who were at home drinking every day, trying to maintain a household, trying to keep it clean. And, you know, when the kids came for the summer, because they would come and visit me. So I had access to my kids. And I know some women don't have access, and I could not imagine. You know, I think I had one holiday where they wouldn't come, and I was just devastated. But for me, being able to keep a house clean, because I thought if I kept my house clean and I took baths every day and I kept a good house, that, I'm okay. But turns out I was wreaking havoc in the house. Changing my perspective really helped me to understand that if I talk about where I'm at, and then other people relate to me, and then I can relate to them, that's how I got out of the hole I was in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we find freedom in speaking out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. So my last question for you, I would like to know what advice you would give to somebody who was thinking about coming into recovery.
Well, what I would like to say to you is that your recovery journey is unique to you, and it will not look like other people's journey. And when you begin this pathway, whatever that pathway is for you, just trust that your process is for you. And I would recommend that you find someone who is on the path that you can relate to, and begin that journey together. And don't give up. And even when it gets hard, fight for your recovery. Fight for the ability to change your own life, because you have the power to do that with God, with the people in your life, with the support systems that you will find. And just talk about where you are. Go to as many meetings, share about where you are. Don't be afraid to. And even if you are, take your time. Just take your time. Because it's when I found out that this was the beginning of the rest of my life, and that I could just be who I was authentically.
Yes.
Like, that part, I just got to that. 10 years. It takes time. I wanted everything back in the first 90 days, but it doesn't work that way. It really does not. So just fight for your own recovery. Advocate for yourself on your behalf. Know who you are. Find out who you are. If you don't know, this is the time to find out. And just don't give up. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. TaTa-Nisha Frazier. Guys, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Jamie Tall, for more recovery-inspired hope. And we will see you next time on our next series of Strong Women in Recovery. Bye.